What's going on, everybody? It's college football, y'all. My name's Brandon Taylor, coming at you today, ready for week one action, where we're going to go in reverse. We're going to go back a few days and talk about week 0, which was a pretty good appetizer for the college football season. Iowa State, Kansas State was about what you expect over there in Dublin, Ireland. A few other matchups. We're going to discuss that before we turn the page and we start talking about what we're going to look forward to this Saturday. Like I said, it's college football. Y'all subscribe to the podcast so you can see when I upload. Also, follow me on YouTube and on all the socials. All that in the description of this episode. So, if we reverse just a few days and we take a trip over to Dublin, Ireland, we'll find this matchup between Iowa State and Kansas State, referred to as Farmageddon, which is a pretty good name if you ask me. So, the story about this game was rain. Rain at kickoff, rain throughout the game. Of course, it is Dublin, Ireland, and they have a bit of a damp environment over there, a damp climate. This first half of this game, pretty sloppy, to say the least. So it started off with Iowa State on offense, and they stall out, and they have to punt from their own 39-yard line. So they didn't get very far down the field. So they punt. And the punt is muffed by Dylan Edwards at the 8-yard line. Iowa State recovers. So essentially, they gained 54 yards. A little bit unconventional there, but I think they'll accept that. However, on 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line, Iowa State fumbles the ball. A botched running back toss. Abu Sama gets hit right in the face. Miscommunication, whatever you want to call it. They turn the ball over. So there you have 2 turnovers in 5 minutes. So you think, okay, the college football season is starting off hot. So they went into halftime 7-7. Well, how did they get there? Well, the first touchdown of the college football season, Rocco Beck throws a beautiful 23-yard pass to Dominic Overby for the touchdown. That is for Iowa State, by the way, at the 3-minute and 26 mark. So there we go. The start of many touchdowns for the 2025 season. So Kansas State redeems himself. They go for it on a beautiful 4th and 1 play. And at the start of the second quarter, quarterback Avery Johnson runs it in from 10 yards out. The quarterback play was fairly decent. Both quarterbacks got rushing touchdowns and touchdowns through the air. But like I said, sloppy offense going into halftime. 7-7. The defenses were pretty good, but I think the offensive sloppiness was more of the story over, at least in that first half. 23 yards on 19 carries, 2 fumbles for Iowa State going into that halftime. And Kansas State had 94 yards rushing, 4 yards per carry. So you can kind of tell that it was at least a rough start for the game. Now, it ended up getting ironed out just a little bit. And Iowa State ends up winning the game 24-21. And I'm proud of that because the odds were Kansas State -3, right? Kansas State was favored. We picked Iowa State because we like Iowa State. We like the Cyclones, okay? And so we're 1-0 on our picks for the season. So that's a good start. It's all downhill from here, folks. Just trust me. I was talking about the quarterbacks. Rocco Beck for Iowa State, 14-28, 183 yards, 2 touchdowns, did not throw a pick. And he did have those 12 rushes for 18 yards and 1 touchdown. So this is a game that I can appreciate. I can appreciate this game. It was a good rivalry, a long-standing rivalry. It's a little weird playing it over in Europe, but pretty decent start to the season. Avery Johnson for Kansas State, 21-30, 273 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 21 yards rushing and 1 touchdown on the ground. So that was a good start. And as we move on, there was only just a few games in this slate, and I'll run through the other ones real quickly here. Idaho State at UNLV. UNLV wins the game 38-31. which is wild. Dan Mullen threads the needle. So kind of a little bit of a shaky start there, but honestly, they won the game by such a small margin, like right there at the end. But a win is a win, right? Doesn't matter who you're playing, a win is a win, right? So Fresno State and Kansas played, and it was a no contest. Kansas wins 31-7. Then a little bit later, you had Sam Houston State at Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky wins that one 41-24. And the final game of the day, which kicked off, about noon, about 12:30 Hawaii time, which would be a 5:30, 6:30, I think 6:30 Eastern kick here in the mainland, which is funny because the first game kicked off at 12 noon Eastern here in Dublin, Ireland. Actually, 5 o'clock there, if I'm correct, if I'm not mistaken, 5 or 6 o'clock there. So then that game ends at like 8:30 local time, 9 o'clock, whatever it was there in Ireland. So then like 3 or 4 hours later, the final game of the Saturday, Stanford and Hawaii comes on. It's 6:30 Eastern here, but it kicks off just after noon there. It's just weird. It's just a very, very weird day for college football. But Hawaii wins 23-20 on the back of Hawaii kicker Kansei Matsuzawa from Tokyo, Japan. He kicks a game-winning field goal. And if you have not seen the story about this kid, he learned how to kick on YouTube when he was in Japan. He got a chance to play football, JUCO football in Ohio before getting a scholarship to play for the University of Hawaii. It's a pretty cool story. He kicks a game-winning field goal, and I love stories like this. And I do not recall a Japanese college football player at any other time. I'm probably wrong. There probably was at least one more, at some point in the past. This is the first I've heard of that. Pretty cool story there. But that ends the day. Stanford, big Atlantic Coast Conference team, Stanford, traveling all the way across the world to get beat by Hawaii. I'm going to continue to make a joke about Stanford and Cal being in the Atlantic Coast Conference. But you know what? Those jokes are for another day. I'm going to keep that one in the holster. Well, folks, it's time. It is time to turn the page to the week 1 of college football season. It's finally here. Now, we're going to pick all the games. I'm going to go through all the odds, all the spreads, all those good things later in the week when we do our final predictions for week 1. But for today, we're going to talk about some other stories that I have in mind. And right now, we're going to talk about some coaches. I've got 3 coaches in particular that will be tested in week 1. I say, well, Brandon, all the coaches are going to be tested in week 1. No, what I'm saying is, I've got 3 coaches here that I think this week has major ramifications on their futures, their careers, obviously this season. Now, 2 of these coaches are not on the hot seat. 2 of these coaches, I think if they have like an average season, they're not going to be fired. One of these coaches in particular has a great chance of being on the job board at the end of the season. So basically here, the gist of this is the start is very important for these coaches, in my opinion. And it all starts right here with Brian Kelly and LSU. And you'll understand what I mean by this as I go through it. The Tigers and the Tigers. LSU versus Clemson. It's going to be in South Carolina. 6:30 Eastern kick on ABC. And what's so important about this game, yes, it's important for Dabo Swinney there at Clemson too, because they have Cade Klubnik. They've got high expectations. But for Brian Kelly and LSU, his road to what LSU fans are demanding and I'm sure what the administration is demanding, what the athletic department is demanding, is for LSU to go to the playoff. Brian Kelly has not done a bad job at LSU. He's entering his 4th season. He's went 29-11. No bad seasons yet. But the Tiger fans and the administration, everybody's expecting more. This is a program that has extremely high expectations from a coach, especially with the roster that they have going into this season. I don't think they're going to give Brian Kelly too much slack here. You know, there's serious college football playoff ramifications. And if you look at the schedules of these two teams, yeah, Clemson has some tough games here in the ACC, but their schedule is nothing like LSU's. I've got LSU's schedule, the strength of schedule, between about an 8 and 12 in the country, which is pretty tough. And if you look at the other matchups that LSU has this season, Florida, at Ole Miss, South Carolina, at Alabama, and they end the season at Oklahoma. None of those are gimme games. The question is, can LSU make it into the playoff with 3 losses? Now, we know the College Football Playoff Committee is going to be using these advanced metrics, things that they probably should have been considering the past 10 years of the playoff. You know, things such as a more defined look at strength of schedule and strength of record. Could those benefit LSU or not? If they win the game, then their playoff campaign gets started on the right foot. If they lose, it is just all the more harder because I don't see them making it to the SEC championship game. You have too much power in front of you. You got Georgia, Alabama, and Texas, and it's going to be hard to get above 2 of those teams. Pick any 2. It's going to be tough to do that, especially with this schedule, with this SEC schedule. One of those teams being Alabama that you have to go to Tuscaloosa to play. You remember the shaky start that LSU had last year in the very first game of the season where they lost to USC 27-20. You remember afterwards, Brian Kelly in the press conference, beating the desk as he's just angry about the defense and their performance. Do they have a better defense this season? Yeah, Garrett Nussmeier, I see people torn on him. Is he good? Is he not going to be good? I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I could be proved completely wrong, and I'm fine if I am. But there's no room for error here for LSU. Is this a must-win? It is not absolutely a must-win because you can win these other games. But, man, if you lose this game, it immediately, the first game of the season, the percentage chance of you making it to the playoff just dwindled. Another coach that I think is going to be tested in week 1. I'm not going to spend as much time on him, and that's Mario Cristobal at Miami. You've got Notre Dame, who was in the championship game last season, number 6, coming to your place there in Miami Gardens. 6:30 Eastern on Sunday, ABC kickoff. So Mario Cristobal entering his 4th season there with the Hurricanes, 22-16, 12-12 there in the ACC. This is a team that I predicted to make it into the playoff as the 10 seed, and they would play number 7 Georgia in the playoff. Because remember, I was excited because I wanted to see the matchup between Carson Beck and his former team. I wanted to see Carson Beck going into Sanford Stadium there in Athens, Georgia, and playing the Bulldogs in the first round of the playoff. I think that would be absolutely incredible to watch. Mario Cristobal has a lot better chance of making it to the ACC championship game, which I predict them to do versus Clemson, and making it to the playoff, which obviously I just mentioned that, than LSU does. The road is a lot clearer for Miami. Now, strength of schedule metrics vary depending on the source that you get the information from. I've seen strength of schedule vary from the lower 20s up into the 30s. I actually saw up into the mid 40s in one source that I read for the strength of schedule for Miami. The road is a lot easier for them. But this is a statement win. If you can beat Notre Dame at home, you've set yourself up for the playoff, essentially, this early in the season. It'll have no conference implications, but college football playoff implications, which is what's important. And that's also what's going to be important in a game like Ohio State and Texas, which is also going to be one of our games of the week this weekend. That game doesn't have any difference when it comes to conference standings, but it will have playoff implications. Now, those two teams, kind of like Miami, they don't have as tough of a road as a team like LSU does, for example. But those teams still don't want that scar on their record that early in the season. Now, they have plenty of time to recover from that. But when you lose that early in the season and you have a tough schedule, you're kind of walking on eggshells. Some teams more than others. So my final coach, and if you've been paying attention, no Brian Kelly nor Mario Cristobal will be fired at the end of this season. Their seats are not nearly as hot as this third coach. Their seats are mild at best, or mild at worst, I should say. The third coach is going to be tested here in week 1. None other than Hugh Freeze at Auburn. They will be playing at Baylor this Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And no, this is not a top 25 matchup. This isn't just a huge game. But for Hugh Freeze, man, this is important. So you might be aware of the, I like to call it the fall camp debacle from Auburn there. And, Jackson Arnold coming in from Oklahoma, is he going to be a bust like Peyton Thorne was? Just yet another quarterback that Hugh Freeze brings in that is less than optimal for what they need at quarterback. Now, you may remember seeing some questionable footage coming out of fall camp for Auburn. Maybe all those kinks have been ironed out. Maybe the quarterback battle is truly done. I do remember Hugh Freeze mentioning in a press conference that all 3 quarterbacks will be playing in this first matchup, which I guess isn't out of the ordinary, but you would expect that, Jackson Arnold will get probably at least 98% of the touches. Baylor is not a pushover team. This is not like a lower tier group of 5 team, or even an FCS team. Baylor is a pretty decent team there in the Big 12. No, not a playoff team, but like Auburn, their over-under win total is also at 7.5. And for Dave Aranda, honestly, his seat's a little mild too. Now, it's about 100 degrees cooler than Hugh Freeze's seat is, but he has just as much of a dependence on this game and a good start for Baylor as Hugh Freeze does with Auburn. Hugh Freeze cannot afford a bad first impression on the season. And that can either be a loss in this game or it can be a win with a lot of problems on offense or defense. If Jackson Arnold throws 2 picks in this game, if there's sloppy play, if the offensive line isn't as good as expected, if the defensive line fails, heck, Auburn's secondary could possibly be one of the most versatile in the country, much less the SEC. You've got several good position players. Champ Anthony, who battled an injury last season, he's going to be back. You've got Jay Crawford, Sylvester Smith, Kayan Lee, just to name a few. There's a lot of versatility and there's a lot of depth in that defensive secondary. So if they fail versus a team like Baylor, what's going to happen when they're playing these big matchups? They have to go to Oklahoma. They have to go to Texas A&M. And the game after that, Georgia at home. They'll also have Alabama at home in the Iron Bowl. But you would want to give your fans and your administration confidence in you meaning Hugh Freeze, especially starting off the season. So let's turn the page. And before we get out of here for the day, I'm going to showcase the 3 games of the week that we're going to have here for week 1. Now, this is really the only 3 games worth talking about. The three big games, that is. It's number 1 Texas at number 3 Ohio State. Ohio State's currently favored by 1 point. The second game is number 9 LSU at number 4 Clemson. Clemson is favored by 4 points. And the third game, number 6 Notre Dame at number 10 Miami. And it looks like Notre Dame is favored by 2.5 currently. This is early lines on these games. Of these three matchups, I will talk about in depth in the next episode. Stay tuned for that. A couple other games that could be fun to watch is Cal at Oregon State. Oregon State's favored by 2 there. Could be pretty fun watch. Also, the in-state matchup, the Mississippi State Bulldogs traveling just down the road to Hattiesburg to play Southern Miss. Mississippi State is favored 13.5. This is a game, if you're Jeff Lebby, you really want to blow that spread out of the water, get this season started on the right foot down there in Hattiesburg. Well, that will do it for this episode of College Football Y'all here on this early week 1 of college football. On the next episode, this will be a Thursday or Friday release. We're going to really deep dive into these three matchups that I mentioned, as well as the rest of the slate. We'll go through the spreads and some other fun stuff. So I hope you'll stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the podcast. That way you'll know exactly when it comes out. So my name's Brandon Taylor. College Football Y'all. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.